Hello and welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot. And today we're going to be talking about bookbait. Now, for those of you who don't know what bookbait is something that I have not coined, I have not termed, I've not created it, but it's something from a blog post I made, I think back in 2019, where I listed 6 things that if somebody was to recommend me a book and they listed any of these 6 things, I would instantly buy it. These are my instant buy, not authors, but instant buy themes, tropes, anything like that. If you dangle it in front of my face like a fish, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to grab it. So I just thought I'd let you know some of those things, and if you have any recommendations, please send them my way, because obviously I love them and I want to read more of them. And this is tried, tested and true, because I've read loads of these kinds of books and they work so well for me, or I've seen it in loads of different forms of media and it works so well for me that I want more of it. So first up, we have sci-fi fantasy murder mysteries. I want to be able to combine 2 of my favourite things, sci-fi and or fantasy and murder mysteries. I want them to make a baby and make a nice sci-fi fantasy murder mystery baby for me to read. This is something that has been bubbling away for a couple of years. I ages ago read the Fetch Phillips archives by Luke Arnold. For the 4th book just came out this last month. And that is an amazing fantasy murder mystery set in a very unique world, actually. It is set in a world where the magic has been destroyed and humans live amongst magical creatures, and the magical creatures' life force and the way that their magic works is fueled by this one beacon of magic, which is a big magical tree. And it goes. I think it gets destroyed, I can't remember, but it goes. It disappears, the magic is gone. And in that realization, you get vampires age significantly because their age catches up to them because they don't have the magic to keep them going. Werewolves and werecats and anybody like that, they are stuck in half transformation, so they are half human, half animal. The humans are the only ones that don't get affected, which makes for a really interesting kind of political element to the novel. But it follows Fetch Phillips, who is a private investigator for magical people, and he goes on all these different adventures trying to solve mysteries. The first book, called The Last Smile in Sunder City, is about a missing vampire teacher, and he goes on this big journey. We meet all these characters. The 4th book is out, so I'm going to read that next month, and I'm very excited. I just love them so much, and I think what makes fantasy murder mystery so great is obviously it's taking 2 things that I love so much, but also I think if you create a murder mystery in our normal world, everyday contemporary murder mysteries, you have your limitations. Sci-fi and fantasy takes the limitations that we'd find in normal murder mysteries and goes, well, what happens if we have magic where you didn't need those limitations? What happens if we had cameras everywhere and robots that could monitor every single thing, that can read your mind and know if you're going to do something wrong? All of that is really, really interesting. And when you add murder mysteries into a fantasy world, it just opens up different challenges, different perspectives, different ways to do a murder and solve a murder. So I think that's why I love them so much. I also have read, and I'm waiting on, the release of the 2nd book in the Hexologist series by Josiah Bancroft, which follows a married couple who focus on hexes. These are very small, not that impressive bits of magic, but they use these hexes to further their private investigation business. And the 1st book, they solve a mystery for the king, and it's just so, so good. It's set in this kind of Victorian-inspired world, and it's just perfect. But the reason that I wanted to make this video, and I wanted to start with sci-fi fantasy murder mysteries as one of those key things that I will read regardless of anything else in the book. If you say to me it's a sci-fi murder mystery or a fantasy murder mystery or a science fantasy murder mystery, I'll read it. It's because for my book group last month, we read The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, which was set in a kind of Lovecraftian Attack on Titan world where Leviathans attack the country, and when they die, their body creates plants and other forms of life that humans have then taken and turned into grafts and poultices and medicine that will genetically modify humans, giving them superhuman-like abilities. And it follows 2 of our main characters who have these abilities. One of our main characters, Din, has had maggots put into his brain, so he can literally record everything he sees, smells, hears, tastes. Is incredible. And these 2 main characters go on a journey to solve the mystery of a very high up kind of military engineering personnel. So not only is it just an incredible murder mystery, it was so well done, but also sci-fi fantasy mysteries allow you to also explore unseen worlds, which again just adds to the mystery and murder mystery element, because it's not like when you read Agatha Christie books, you know you're setting in a 1920s, 1930s, 1940s England or another country maybe. But you kind of know what you're going to get. In sci-fi fantasy murder mysteries, you don't know. Everything is so unknowable to you, which I think adds so much to the mystery, because not only are you trying to figure out who killed this person, but you're also trying to figure out the world. So yeah, sci-fi fantasy murder mysteries are my favourites. The next one, and this will not come as a surprise to literally anyone, is epistolary novels. The first two of these are quite vague. We'll go into more detailed themes and tropes in a sec, but I cannot make a video about things I will naturally gravitate and naturally buy if I don't mention epistolary novels. So for those of you who don't know, epistolary is a kind of storytelling, specifically where the story, the book, is told in anything but prose. So diary entries, transcripts, newspaper clippings, text chains, email chains, things like that. I have read quite a lot of these kinds of stories. For example, the Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff was my first exposure into epistolary novels. A YA sci-fi trilogy following a group of people who were living on an illegal mining colony who tried to escape after their lives are threatened because the company that was illegally mining wanted to basically destroy all evidence that they were illegally mining. And it follows the people who lived on that planet, the workers who tried to escape, and tell everybody what's happened to them. It's told over 3 books. Absolutely incredible. And a very beautiful, very visual way of telling the story. Your epistolary novels don't have to be incredibly beautiful visually, but that is a visually stunning set of books. I've also read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which follows a young teenager who decides to solve the cold case that plagues her town, and she does it through the form of podcasts. So it's a really good mixture of prose, transcripts, newspaper clippings. It's a really good mixture. That is also a trilogy and also turned into a TV show. The big author for me, though, that made me realise how much I love epistolary novels is Janice Hallett. Janice Hallett is a screenwriter turned author, and she has written so many epistolary murder mysteries, contemporary murder mysteries, and I think I'm just a fucking massive murder mystery fan. That must be what it is. But what I love so much about her work is she kind of gives you the evidence. The first book in particular, The Appeal, which follows a murder that happens in this small village, you basically work with these 2 characters that are these young lawyers in training who are given a dossier of files, and you need to go through and figure out from those documents who the murderer is. That's kind of the idea. What I do is I just read the whole thing and wait for Janice to tell me, because I just love the story so much. But she has done so many other murder mysteries. She is, next month in June, bringing out her first children's epistolary murder mystery called A Box Full of Murders, which I'm currently reading at the moment, and it is very, very good. It's about a brother and sister who get separated after their parents' divorce, and they kind of bond over trying to solve the mystery of what happened in this scouting guiding week away at camp story. But it's very, very good. It's so, so good. I'm a massive, massive fan. But yeah, again, it's such a unique way to tell a story, especially with Janice Hallett. Such a unique way to do a murder mystery. I've never seen anything like it, which is amazing. But epistolary novels just are very visually appealing, and I think my attention span can be quite short at times. And epistolary novels are always the novels that I read the most of, because they're just so eye-catching and they want to keep reading because there's always something new and fresh. Next, actually more of a vague one still, is books about books. Now this, while epistolary novels are kind of focusing more on stories and fiction, same with sci-fi murder mysteries, it's a very fiction-based focus. Books about books can be anything. Absolutely anything. It can be romance books, it can be fantasy books, it can be non-fiction. So I just love, and I guess as being a reader and being a bookseller, if you give me any books about books, regardless of fiction, non-fiction, genre, anything, I am very, very likely to pick them up. I just am. The 2 that do come into mind are 2 non-fiction books. So earlier this year I read Bookish, which was a memoir by Lucy Mangan about all the books that kind of impacted her adult life and helped push a trajectory of where her life was going to go. That was really engaging, really funny, and then she ends the book with a list of all the books she was talking about, which is an amazing thing, and I love that. The other one I'd recommend is Reading Lessons by Carol Atherton, which is a bit of literary criticism, and it focuses on Carol Atherton, who was a English secondary school teacher, and she kind of recontextualizes why we're still discussing the same books for GCSE, and she lists all the books that she has taught and all the poems she's taught for years. It explains a little bit about her life teaching them, but also going why these books are still important now and why we can still get stuff from these books years after they were written, years after they were added to the curriculum. And it really made me appreciate a lot of the books that I studied at GCSE. Welcome to the Hyeonamdong Bookshop, which is an amazing South Korean book about trying to find solace and contentment in the mundanity of things, but also doing what's right for you. But it focuses on a woman who divorces her husband and opens her own bookshop. And it's about the ups and downs of running a bookshop. If you give me a book about books, regardless of where it sits in the spectrum of books, I will read it. Then moving on to a trope. My favourite trope in romance. It's taken me a couple of times to figure out in romance what I like. So enemies to lovers is up there. I'm a big fan of enemies to lovers. I'm a big fan of the whole like, I didn't know where to go, where somebody turns up to the house of their like someone they're kind of seeing, or like their enemy, and they're like injured or they're sad and they're like, I didn't know where to go. Love that. But I came to a very strong realization recently that I love the fake dating trope. Love it. I don't know what it is. I think it adds a really interesting dynamic for the characters. I like the idea of two characters laughing and joking and trying to make it work between them, but then also the lines blurring between what is fake and what is now actually real. I think it's so fun. Also, what I like so much about fake dating is it just makes for such hilarious storytelling and such hilarious character interactions, such hilarious kind of scenes that the author can put in. I love enemies to lovers. I think enemies to lovers is great, but I also love reading contemporary romances, and I hate enemies to lovers in contemporary romances. It does not work. I always think about the Eleanor Armas book, The Long Game, where the author wanted us to believe that they were enemies when really they were just disgruntled neighbours at best. I don't think enemies to lovers at all works in a contemporary setting. So as much as I like enemies to lovers in a fantasy setting, I love fake dating across the board. Across the board. The other one I was thinking is like, I love Princess Bodyguard. I've recently realised that with The Owner of the Dawn. But again, I'm not entirely sure I would love that much in a contemporary setting. So I was thinking, what would work for me across the board, across all genres? And it's the fake dating trope. Because you could put the fake dating trope in fantasy books without a shadow of a doubt. When I think of the fake dating trope, I do actually stupidly think of The Next Best Fling by Gabriela Gomez, which follows two people who everybody assumes that they've hooked up at this wedding engagement party, and they kind of just go along with it. And while I normally love that, there were other issues with the book. But again, I picked that up because I had the fake dating trope, because I just think it's so fun. I think it's so fun. I think it's so entertaining. I feel like there are so many different things that you can do. And I also love that dawning realization where they're like, oh, I'm not faking it anymore. I actually am in love with this person and I love it. I think it's so good. Then we have a very weird one, but it's very, very, very specific. And I'm not going to apologize for that, in that is I will gravitate more towards a book if it's set on a train. I love a fucking train story. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I did reread that a couple of years ago, having already known what had happened. Not as enjoyable when you know how it ends, but I did love the setting on a train. I also think of Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson, which is part of one of my all-time favourite crime series out there, the Ernest Cunningham series, and that is set on a train where every single suspect is a murder mystery writer. So all of them know how to get away with murder, literally, because they write it all the time. And it's set on a train where they're hosting this writing festival, this like 50th anniversary book festival on a train. It is so well done. I just love that one episode of Adventure Time where it's Finn's birthday or something like that, and there's a murder mystery on the train. Incredible. I love trains. It doesn't even have to be a murder mystery. It could just be that two people, I mean, I prefer it in murder mysteries. There's a murder mystery theme, but it could just be that two people meet on a train and they talk about their lives. I don't know what it is about a train. I love being on trains. Whenever they send me to another store and they're like, oh, you have to go to this store. And I'm like, on the train? You bet. I like to watch the world pass my by. I like to put on like Studio Ghibli music and watch as the water goes by and the sun filters through the trees, and I'm like, life is worth the living. Love it. So yeah, I love train themed books. I don't know any books I've got coming up though that have trains in it. If you tell me it's set in a train, I'll read it without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'll read it. That's a very vague one. It's a very bizarre choice, but I feel like it makes sense in my heart. And then finally, and I did actually weirdly struggle to find examples, so this is more of just a media across the board. I love stories and films and anything that breaks the fourth wall, that addresses the audience. I'm thinking of Deadpool. You might roll your eyes. I love that shit. Again, I want to bring up the Ernest Cunningham series by Benjamin Stevenson, which is everyone in my family's killed someone, everyone this train is a suspect, and everyone this Christmas has a secret. I love when filmmakers, authors, anything are able to take something and completely put it on its head, but also acknowledge that they're in a piece of media. It's so good. I love stuff like that. And that's weirdly, and it doesn't break the fourth wall, isn't really meta in the Murderbot Diaries. The way that Murderbot speaks and the way that the story is told in the Murderbot Diaries is so good, in the fact of like, you feel like you're there with them telling the story. And that's my favorite kind of first person narration. I don't want it to just be, and then I did this. I want to feel like the author is speaking to me. The character is speaking actually to me personally, not as just like a, oh, I'm doing first person because I like writing in first person. No, I want the first person narration to be purposeful. I want it to be that I'm actually sat there with the author as the author is telling me what's going on. I love when authors and filmmakers break the fourth wall. The Ernest Cunningham series is genuinely the best fiction, best written option for that, where we follow, he's originally a how to write murder mystery writer, and he creates all these pamphlets, and he actually solves mysteries himself, and then he writes about his experience solving that murder in a book, which you're then reading. There used to be a kid's book that I read called, the title of this book is A Secret or something, that was so meta, and so like he would literally talk to the reader. I love those kinds of books. Not in the like, dear reader, I married him sense, in a sense of I want to feel like as a reader, I am also involved in this storytelling. And I just love them. And the Ernest Cunningham series is probably the best example. Somebody just said The Spear That Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, which I own. And it's on my 25 and 25. That's bumped up the list. But yeah, I don't know what it is. If it's a meta, and also I kind of like it when books understand that they're books. It makes no sense, it's kind of weird, but if you have books that break the fourth wall or are meta and you feel like they're done well, because sometimes they drop the wall. I've only recently realised I like this because I read the entire Ernest Cunningham series last year, 10 out of 10 reading experience, but because I only read it last year, I was a bit like, ooh, I've only just realised that I like it. But it's good, and I like it, so there we go. So there we are. Those are the 6 things that if they are included or mentioned in anything, any shape or form to do with any form of media, but specifically books, I will read them. Let me know any of your recommendations. If you have any, please comment them down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. And